Alrighty, congratulations. You've gotten to your first code along in your first week of the class. I know that setting up the development environment for those of you that are new to my class, that can be a challenge. And so, congratulations getting through that. I hope you reached out for help if you needed it. So, now we're going to use that environment, whichever one you chose. And I'm going to go ahead and click in here to the code along, and you can see based on the way the course looks is that I've completed these two items and now I'm on to here and I can't unlock the next week until I've gotten through this item. So that's the way the course works. I talked about it in the first one, but I just wanted to give you that. So now for the code alongs, there may be different content here, but generally it's a link to a file, how I grade, which is commit messages in code, and if you give me the right URL. Okay. So the instruction file, markdown file, so you'll hear that term twice today. Actually, a markdown file is also what you use to set up the Get Help. So you've already seen them, but now we'll actually use them in a different way besides just instructions. So I'm going to go ahead and have that link open. So your first code along is both using Kevin Powell's content and me showing you how to work through these code alongs. Okay. So before we get started, just a little bit of an overview because what I'm going to do today is I'm going to attempt to show you in both code space and on local setup. Okay. So just know when I move back and forth, it's not the intent that you would have both. I don't recommend both. You could if you ever needed to, but I'm just telling you in general, you have one or the other. And the reason you wouldn't have both is that GitHub would not be happy if you were not syncing it correctly. Okay. But I will just say that what I'm going to show you is both. So first I'm going to move to my local. So I'm on a Mac here. Doesn't really matter, Mac, Windows, Linux, it all runs. Now for me, and I'm going to make my screen just a little bit bigger, I'm going to go ahead and drop my terminal. For you, you should see, if you're local, you should see that base folder and you should see a private and possibly, hopefully, a public as well. But now mine looks just a little bit different. Don't worry about it. But here is the repo, right, that I've created. So a repo becomes a file on your system, right? So this is my local environment. So when you see it dark, you can just know that that is, for me, my local environment. And remember, you can customize these with your own particular colors. So I'm going to move back now. We'll be back to my local development environment in a minute. And I'm going to move over to Git directly on the browser. And with that same repo, I'm going to come over here because during the setup, you needed to have set up your code space. Okay, so now I'm going to run my code space. But remember, what happens here is it takes what information you've pushed to here, right? So at this point, you should see what you've pushed in here, which was the Git help and the Git ignore, and I believe the README file that I had you set up. Those things are here. And then when you go into code space, it opens up a piece of a computer out on the cloud that you get to use. But nobody but you sees this code space, just like nobody but me sees my local development environment. Everything ultimately has to end up on GitHub for you to share with anyone. Okay, so now my code space is coming up. There's something I want to show you on code space. And by the way, this is actually also true generally on the local development environment, is I want you to just disable the AI things because here's the deal. There's going to be a couple times in this class when using AI is going to hurt you. You really want to learn to code. Now, I'm not anti-AI at all, but in this case, you're learning a skill. And if you rely too heavily on the AI, you won't get the skill, and there'll be definitely a couple times this will, and just in general, you want to use AI to help you learn, not to do the work for you. So over here, you notice this build with agent. One thing I do here is I just say, and it says show by default, so I take it off. So I get that off, right? And then I shut that. So show by default should be off. And the other thing is when you're down in a terminal, if you don't know how to get to that, right, terminal, and then if you don't happen to see a terminal, but generally the terminal comes up by default. This is again a chat interface, so I just say don't show, okay, because what you want to gain here is muscle memory. And I'm going to flip back to the local because that also will have some of that built in. And the last thing I do is I come over here and I just say hide Copilot status. Again, I do this because it's going to help you actually learn, but I wouldn't see what's on your local system. You really have to figure out for yourselves based on my recommendation the way you're going to set up your space. Okay, so now we took a quick look around. The thing you're going to need to have on VS Code is a live server extension. And what this is going to do, and it won't matter if it's code space or local, it's going to create a little live server. And what we do this for is when we're looking at our rendered web pages, it actually acts like a server. Kevin is going to do this. And when I say Kevin, this is Kevin Powell, who we're going to follow along. He's going to do it kind of the old-fashioned way. And I figure it's time to learn because we're going to take what you're learning from Kevin. We're going to give you some more information. So in this case, I'm just going to walk you through how to load an extension. Okay, so I'm going to do it first in code space. It's the same thing in local. I'm going to come over here and notice there's these icons. So Explorer here, right, if I want to search for something, this is the version controls. And we'll talk about that. I recommend doing version control to get workflow that you've already done on the command line. And so, but this one is like if you're running code debugging, we don't have to do that here. And the next one is extensions. So when you click on extensions, right, sometimes, depending on how your setup is, you might actually have some installed because it will look at a local VS Code, but probably not. So in here, just search for live server. And notice for me, and hopefully you want to get the one that's got the biggest downloads, because actually there is another one I saw yesterday playing with this. But the 74 million downloads, a lot of people use this, okay? Again, if we were over here on local, you'd do the same thing, live server. Okay, you install live server. Now I already have it installed on my local development environment because this is where I spend most of my time. But for those of you on code space, you'd go ahead and install. Do you trust? Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and tell you this particular person has had 74 million people trust it, and I'm going to trust that they didn't have any problems as well. Okay, so it's installing now. It's going to give me a little notice over here. I'm going to get rid of that. And I'm going to go ahead and close my tab, and then I'm going to go back to my get back to my Explorer, my files. Okay. Now notice there's now a go live. Now we're not going to need necessarily go live for this first one, but more than anything, I want you to be set up for as we move forward in the class. And if I move local, I have a similar thing. So you can really see the similarities between what I'm doing local and what you're doing on cloud space. Remember, cloud space, there is a time limit. So make sure you're always stopping it when you're done so you don't take up those hours. Okay. So the other thing is and I covered this on the setup, but I just want to make sure because I had a few students that's thrown them off. Make sure that you have autosave on. Now, this is again a difference with Kevin in his videos. He actually will say go save, but I think autosave is better because then what you're doing is your computer's always saving, and then what you do is run your version control to make sure that you are version controlling your files, which is part of what you're learning in this class. Okay. All right, so let me do it on code space just to make sure. I'm going to go over to file, and by default, I believe now VS Code has that set up. And Kevin will, in the first video, actually talk about how he recommends VS Code as well. Okay, so the strategy. So now that we've done that, so the strategy for doing the code along, which we're going to get to as soon as we talk about your setup, is actually the following, is to actually review the commit log. So what happens, and I'll just scroll past this and we'll come back, is you're going to, for this first one, you're going to watch video 1, 2, and 3. Okay. And then what happens is, here's a link to Kevin's, his playlist. Okay. Here's for every video, you'll either have, like for the first one, they'll be in, which means you can watch all the way to the end. And now this is going to be unusual, but you will have no commit message. Okay. Now for the second one, all the way to the end, but you actually are going to have a commit message. So video 2, what is HTML? Okay. So I'm just telling you when you're actually working through videos, and now here's an example on 3 is we're going to have 2 commits, which means you need to know when to stop to do the first one, right? And it'll say something like, this is not unusual to see, because Kevin's going to create a folder called My First Project. Well, we already have our repos, and I'm going to walk you through in a minute the setup that you will need. We will have already set up something. Now, there'll be no commit here, but just telling you at this part, there's nothing, just don't do what Kevin does. And I try to not have that happen, but sometimes I have to say, hey, we're a little different. And then the last part is actually where you're going to drag something, and I'll talk about this in just a minute, but here's your commit. So what will happen is when you're done, you'll have two commit messages, and then I'll show you how to submit, very much like what you did in the development environment. Okay? All right, so now I'm going to scroll back up. So I'm just giving you an overview. So the reason I said that was scrolling back up, what I'd recommend is before you start watching a video, know what you have to do, right? Then watch it and pause where you need to, code along. And then actually, I should add to this, then commit. Okay. So you actually have to do the commit, the git add, the git commit. Now, the git push is actually what happens when you push it to GitHub. So you don't have to do the git push until you're absolutely done. Now, can you every time? Absolutely. It just moves your work over to GitHub. Because remember, when you're working on code space, that's only between you and this little version of a computer. And when you're working locally, it's only locally. It's when you do git push that it pushes it out to the web. Okay? Or in this case, to the web. That is where GitHub lives. And you and I, that's how you share your work with me and with everybody else later. Okay. So now the sandbox setup. Now there's a bit of content here, but really it's just so we cover for everybody's different setups, for code space and for local users. But basically what we're doing here is for the code along work. And now you'll see a difference in next week when we do project work. Project work folder file structures will be different, but for every week we'll set up a new folder. Okay, so now this is lowercase w1, lowercase w2. So week 1, week 2, week 3. I am specific about having upper lowercase because when you're doing files, the only file that's different is README. The README is really the only file that is all uppercase. From there, folders and files are generally all lowercase. Okay. All right. So that really just to know, when you're doing a code long, you create a folder for every week, and then you end up copying the previous weeks into the next week, and that's what we'll see when you get into week 2. All right, so now we're going to create your week folder. Now you actually created a folder when you did the development environment, okay? So in this case, we're going to create one. So let's do it first in code space. I'm going to move over here. So now what's important is when you're actually setting up a folder is to know which of the icons, and you may have run into this, actually creates a folder. And if you hover over, it actually gives you a little toast, we call this, to tell you which it is. But the key is also, where are you creating it? Now I'm going to show you the wrong way. Don't do it this way. If I happened to be clicked in here and I said create a folder, it would create it underneath that, which is not what you want. So I'm going to hit escape and get out. What I want it to be is at the same level as my Git help here, right? So there's two ways I could do it. I will click just in this main part, and when I hit new folder, I do W1, okay? So you want to do that on your side. And I want to show you something. I'm going to do the same thing over here. Same concept. Now I'm actually clicking inside that repo. Okay, now again, my local is a little different, and you'll see this in a minute, but W1, okay? So what you want, because remember, this folder, my demo-private, is a folder, but it represents a repo on GitHub, okay? So now we've created it, right? Okay, so now what we're going to do is, now that you have that folder created, now we're going to actually open VS Code to only show that folder, because it just makes things work better in the long run for our setups. Okay, so we're going to do this for both environments. So now that we've created that W1, now we're going to only open that W1. But what's really interesting is, even though you've created it lowercase w, hopefully you got that step, when we open it, it actually creates this as looking as an uppercase. Okay, so just to tell you that, I actually discovered that for the first time yesterday. We are always learning. Okay, so here's what you do. In code space, you come over here, File, then you're going to say Open Folder. Okay, so we're going to open just this W1 folder. So up here, File, Open Folder. Now, this is really can look different because it's like, well, there's these two dot folders that I don't know what this, but I understand this is my repo. So that's the one I click on. Okay. If you click on one of these, you may go down a trail of things and it won't really hurt anything. Just don't delete anything on these other ones. But clicking here, then it looks in that directory to show me what's in there. And I'm going to click W1. Now, when I do this and then I click OK, it's actually going to restart my code space and only have that W1 open. Okay, so I'm just going to show you, see how I was telling you, even though we know when we created it, as a matter of fact, oh yeah, and this is the other message you get. A GitHub repository was found on the parent folder. Do you want to open it? I'm going to say never. I don't need that other one open because the reason I'm doing this is to only have this folder open. So when I'm working in here, all of my references and my refs, you'll see this as we go through, will work as expected. Okay, now you always get this welcome as well. So I'm just going to get rid of that. Now on the development side, something similar, open folder, scroll to whatever your base folder is, W1, and here, now you can see. And again, it makes this view of your Explorer so much cleaner. Okay, so now you've done it. Okay, so now you have, so when you see this, that's really what that is, because every week you're going to create a folder and then you're going to open that folder and that's where you work. Okay, so we're just going to look at Go Live and then we're actually ready to cover what you need to do here. All right. Now, in here, this is when I'm going to go to code space. And now I don't have anything in here. There's nothing for us to view, but I'm going to go ahead and show you how to start code space. Sorry, we started code space. I'm going to show you how to start Go Live, which is the server. Okay. So let's go ahead and fire it up. And what happens is that it actually opens up another tab for those of you on CodeSpace, which, by the way, when you're local, you actually get another tab as well. And what will happen is you'll start seeing things show up here, but really what will happen as soon as you create an index file, which is going to be the last thing you're going to do here with Kevin, is actually going to show whatever that page is. And I think in the last video, he creates it, but he doesn't put anything in there. So we'll look at what that looks like as well. So you leave this open and you're over here and it gives you a little message. You can get rid of that and that. And then you'll end up creating your files for here in with this icon and it'll go into your W1 folder. And on local, you just hit, once you have that extension, Go Live. Okay, and then again, there's nothing here. Okay, so now you are now ready. And by the way, when you're submitting URLs, right, if you ever see this 127, as a matter of fact, if you look closely on the local, 12, this means it's local. Okay, and if you ever give me this URL, I won't be able to see it because it's only on your system. So just don't give it to me, right? Just know that that's only for me to view, and it's a server that is being served up via live server. And the same is true over here with CodeSpace. Now, this doesn't show the 127, but I've had students submit this to me before, and it won't work because I can't see that. Remember, the only thing I can see is your what gets pushed to GitHub. Okay. All right. So now we're ready. All right. So this is just some content. Probably after a couple weeks, I may drop this because I hope that after a bit, and you can always go back to this if you ever needed it. Okay. So now we're actually ready to dig into Kevin's stuff. Okay. So for the first video, Kevin's just going to talk about giving, hey, you need some starter assets. Okay. And on his and here's what's important, because I actually want you to watch these first 3 videos. Okay, I'm just going to tell you here, just to give you that heads up. I don't want you to do it as I'm doing it today, because this is where you're going to do it and do commits. Okay, so just watch me, then go do his video. Again, get used to looking at video 1. I'm going to watch to the end. Here's anything I need to make sure of. If there's a stop point, and if I have a commit message, which again, going forward, this hardly ever happens where you don't, but most of the time you have, like, here's my commit message. And if you have 2 parts, then for the second, and in this case, there's a message specific for that particular one. Okay. All right. So now for this first one, Kevin gives on his video. Matter of fact, let me just bring up, I'm over here. Kevin does give a link to Dropbox, and I went in there and downloaded them. You can do the same as well, and it's version 1. But to try to make life just a little bit easier, I actually provide this as well. You could download it. So if you want to download it from here, only thing I didn't like about this is haven't used a Dropbox in a while. I had to set up an account. So if you already have one, you're welcome to use it. If not, I want to show you something you might want to know. Now, when we get started, it won't say test files, but when you go to week 1, you're going to see that same zip file. And when you click on it, you could just do a download right here. Okay, so however you get it, just get that download on your local system. Okay, and I'm just going to back out and go to the Colong again. So you can either get it from his link or from mine. Now, what will happen when you get it, again, I'm just doing it here. This I suppose you could do, but I went ahead and downloaded it on my system, and it's a zip file. For those of you on Windows, right click and you have an extract all. And I think even Windows these days does what the Mac does as well, which is if I double click, it'll actually just unzip the contents. Okay. And then here, I'm going to double click. Okay, so what happens here is he gives you 3 folders. We only need this folder in your repo. Okay, so again, don't copy, and in this case, don't put this extracted zip file in your repo. Put it somewhere outside. Now, I actually say that in the instruction, but I just showed you that as well. Okay, so let me show you what I mean here. So if I go down here, on this first one, I talk about, okay, your job is to download it, right? Either link, and I didn't even talk about that. I gave you this other one, but then you unzip it outside of your private repo. Don't put it in there, because now on this step right here, actually, you're only going to need, actually, it's the last step where you're going to drag just the images into there. Now, again, I'm going to show you, but don't do it yet because you're not ready. Because part of what I look for is these commit messages in sequence. Okay. All right. So now we are going to watch. You're going to do this when you're ready. You're going to watch the first one, no commit. You're going to watch the second one, but on the second one, you're going to create a new file in your W1. You're going to listen to what Kevin talks about, and you're going to take notes in Markdown syntax. So I'm going to stop here. I'm actually going to create it again. Don't do it yet. Just know that when you get here, this is what you need to do. But I want to show you, and I've provided this link up here, which is a link to the Markdown syntax cheat sheet. Okay, so you're going to learn HTML, which is called a markup language. Well, for documentation, and matter of fact, for all of my documentation, I use Markdown. So Markdown is great because to do a heading, it's just a £. To do bold text, to do italics, to do block quotes, to do ordered list, unordered list. Now you're going to end up learning HTML to do all this markup, but in this case, it's Markdown, which means a simplified version. And I want you to learn this because this is how you're going to be taking notes. Okay. All right. I'm getting close to the end. I'm so excited. So I'm going to show you, right? Now that I'm in here in this week 1, I'm going to create a new folder. And if you're doing it now, you need to wait. Okay. So watch me do it. Okay, so now I've created a README file, okay? And I'm going to say, again, this shouldn't show up after I do this, don't show it again, all right? So now I'm going to do a heading, okay? And a heading, now remember, heading 1. So whenever I have you take notes, create a heading that shows me what the topic that you're taking notes on. I just say take notes. Now, in this case, I expect, depending on the amount of content that you're taking notes on, you might use outline concepts, right? So I'll just show you what this would look like, right? So I'm going to say, what is HTML? Now that happens to be the commit message. And maybe what I do here is this first concept, right? Again, I'm not taking notes for you. That's the part you get to do. I'm just telling you. Second concept, right? Now, notice what's happening here. What's happening here too is that you're now have created a file inside of the work of your W1 folder. Okay. Now, this is the same process you would use if you were over on the local. Doesn't matter. Okay. So, but now notice that my terminal is open if you're not sure, because now at this point, right, what you're going to do once you take some notes, because I will look at that, now you're going to do a commit, right? So now I could copy that commit, right? I did a, right, use Markdown. We created it. Cool, right? Uh-oh. So let me go back to my code space, which is here. And now if you don't have it, I just closed mine on purpose to show you this new terminal. And now remember how you do get status? It's like, okay, there's nothing, because in this case, this is a new file, right? So it actually is like, I don't know about this yet. That's why you do get add. Now, by the way, one thing I like to do is I hit clear. So now I'm going to do get add star. Cool. And so now if I do get status, oh, okay, now Git says, oh, you know what? I have a new file, because Git added that file into there, right? And so now I'm going to do git commit -m. Oh, now when you paste, this could happen, right? As you actually could get this little message, and what you need to do is allow it. Now, what happened was I did end quote. I did quotes before I put in my text. So I'm going to come back here. I'm going to put my cursor. Now, you could just type this out, but I just wanted to make my life easier, right? So now at that point, my get status is I don't have any more changes, right? I don't have any more changes, nothing. There's nothing, you're good, nothing to commit, right? But there is one commit, right, that's not being pushed. You're ahead, which means you have a commit here, but where that commit is not yet, and I'm just going to go over to show you this, 85, right? If I go over to my repo that I'm demoing here on, I would see that folder and file are not here because I haven't pushed. But again, I don't have to push until I'm completely done. And if I come over here, actually CodeSpace will tell me, hey, there's one change in here. And that one change means what is in here does not align with what's in here. So you always, before you submit, have to have done that piece. Okay? All right, so now we've done that. You've written some notes here about what Kevin goes over about what is HTML, right? You're going to do that. And now on this one, Kevin's going to, this is the first part. Kevin's going to create my first project. You're not going to do that because you're going to be using the W1. So in this case, but again, watch and play along, because this is part of just this first part. It's kind of getting to the way, used to the way Kevin goes through things. Now, when you get to this part, you're actually going to drag that images folder into that W1. Okay, now how do you do that? Okay, let me actually show you. There's actually two ways to do it. If I'm in CodeSpace, I could bring up my folder, right? In my folder, I could just drag this into here, and notice how it just then is in that, and there's the files we're going to need later. Okay, now if I do get status, okay, here, cool, I have untracked files. So it says I have a folder and I have files, but doesn't know about them. So I'm going to do get star, add everything, get commit -m, and that's where it's like, okay, which one am I using now? Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, cool. All right. So I'm going to go over here. Right. So now I have the two commits that are done. Okay. And I'm going to do get push. Now, at this point, before I do that, I want to show you, and I showed you this in the dev setup, but I just want to show you again here, the importance of once you're ready to submit your work, get push. Now what happens is that all the work over in my code space is now what is also over, and I'm going to hit a refresh over into here. Okay. Cool. Now, before I actually submit, I'm going to go back to my code space, and I'm going to, because I'm done with this one, and this is where you stop the timer on those 120 hours. And hopefully you heard me say you could actually upgrade with the educational account. If you want to know more about that, I'll talk about it soon. I'm going to hit, I went down to the bottom, right? Brings up a command. I'm going to hit stop, and this will stop my code space. Now, while I'm waiting for that, I'm going to come over here. I'm going to come over here to my GitHub. Okay. So on GitHub, now I'm ready to turn it in. I'm ready to turn in this assignment. So I'm going to go to W1. And now what you need to do is give me that URL. Now, we use the other URL for our project work. For this work, you give me your commit history, okay? You click on that. If you didn't see me, I'm going to do it one more time. Here, the history. Now, part of why I have you do this is so you look to see if you got the right commits, because that's how you're getting graded, okay? Now, you can actually go in and see what those were, okay? So green means I've added stuff in there. All right. Okay, now what I want to do is grab that URL, and now I'm going to go submit the assignment, paste it in here, and submit the assignment, and you're done. Okay, so that's your job for this first one. I know there was a lot of information. I didn't do it local. Everything you needed to do could have been done over here, no problem. We're going to pick it up on week 2 attendance. I hope this was helpful. Reach out for help if you need it.